Okay, my juniors, before we begin One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, I have two allegories to tell you. Now remember, allegories are what? They are simple stories with a much deeper meaning. The first one, if you remember, is the myth of Sisyphus. Okay, here it is. Remember, Sisyphus had a certain love of self, right? So the gods, to punish him for his hubris, his pride, his love of his own self, his narcissism, punished him by having him push a rock up a hill every single day. And at the end of every single day, the rock would be back down the hill. And Sisyphus would push it back up. And at the end, the rock would be back down the hill. Now, this is important because the gods hope to crush his spirit, to crush his narcissism, to crush his pride. But what began to happen slowly is Sisyphus began to enjoy pushing the rock up the hill. He began to enjoy the process. Now, this allegory is important for a few different reasons. First, because Sisyphus is able to find happiness in the monotony of the rock, he's able to become greater than the gods. Because if the gods themselves can't punish you, nobody can. On another level, this allegory is simply an allegory, like I've told you guys, about life. You get up and push a rock up the hill every day. Some of you have jobs. I ran into Mr. Ricks at Popeyes pushing his rock up the hill. Now the question is, Desmond, do you love that rock? Because if we can love what we do every day, we are able to become greater than the gods. We're able to become the master of our universe. I love teaching. I love pushing this rock up the hill. I love mentoring and talking to each of you, both my doctors, Dr. Roman and Dr. Akhtar. I love helping you guys understand how life works, right? And I love looking in your eyes, like when Denise Carrillo's really paying attention and she's just nodding and looking. I enjoy that so much. Therefore, I become the master of my universe. I enjoy my rock, the monotony of life. I get up every day. I change Everett's diapers. I put him to sleep. It's the same process over and over again until one day he leaves. But if you look at it, the rock is your life. You have to love your life, small as it may be and monotonous as it might be. Now, the second allegory I need to tell you actually isn't an allegory, it's a short story about myself. I took art. Yes, I told you my mother made me take AP classes. I took AP art. I had no reason to be in AP art. I only drew stick figures. I don't know why I was in that class. It was ridiculous. But the one part of that class I actually did decent on is pointillism. Now, those of you guys who don't know what pointillism is you take it, you do a bunch of little dots. And slowly but surely over time, those dots create a picture. This is why this is important. See, a lot of times we look at life as the whole picture. And you take back, you're like, man, that is beautiful. But let's be honest, you can't see the whole picture till it's done. Right? And that time on my deathbed, where I look back at the beauty of my life and say, wow. Unless this pointillism teaches something about life. If I just look at my life into one microcosm, one dot, can that tell me who I am in a greater significance? Meaning this. Some of you guys are very into your grades, right? I'm very proud of you guys. You worked very hard for certain grades. But if, say you took Mr. Shank and you looked at a microcosm of his day, which I'm presuming is sometime social, sometime working on his grades, sometime worrying about his grade, sometime doing other things, sometime doing other things. If we solely looked at one day, could we get an understanding of who he is on the greater realm? What will we see in that day? Would we see the kind of compassion? that we know he has in him? Would we see the sort of academic vigor that we know we have in him? Can one day become a metaphor for all? Right? If you think about it, Sisyphus pushing that rock up that hill one day is a metaphor for his whole existence. Now, the text we're going to read is one day in the life of Ivan Denisovich, which is interesting when you juxtapose. Remember the word juxtapose, meaning you take two things and you put them next to one another. And you leave them be and let the audience decide for themselves, right? A metaphor is a comparison between two things without using like or as. A simile is a comparison between two things using like or as. A juxtaposition says nothing. They're just there. So we've juxtaposed the time of the doves, which ends in this word happy. But happy can only be understood in context of the whole novel. I hope you're getting it. Happy means nothing on that last page unless you have all the words before it. It's a whole picture. And then you decide for yourself what happy means. Where on this novel, all you're going to get is one day, one moment, one day in the life of this man who's in prison, in a gulag, which is a Russian work camp. One day. Can this one day sum up his existence with the same beauty that a time of the doves did? Can one day show everything that this human being is? Can pointillism, can one dot show our existence? Or do you need the whole picture? It's very interesting when you juxtapose these two ideas together. Now, let's begin. Now remember, this week you're going to read pages 6 through 12. We're all going to use the same book online, which you know I love that. So, my wife has an iPad. You guys know this is not mine. So, here we go. So the first text I have on here is for the seniors. Now for you guys, okay, you're going to go right here and see search. I'm going to put in one day in the life of Ivan Denisovich, but then at the end write the words PDF. Then the very first link, top one, is right here. See? Top link. Boom. You have this wonderful picture on top of a man in a gulag behind some barbed wire fencing, which, right? Ooh, lovely tale. And then we go to page 6, which begins this way. Oh, can you see it? There it is. It says Moscow, December 1962. One day in the life of Ivan Denisovich. At 5 o'clock that morning, a reveille was sounded, as usual, by the blows of a hammer on a length of rail hanging up near the staff quarters. The intermittent sounds barely penetrated the window panes on which the frost lay 2 fingers thick, and they ended almost as soon as they'd begun. It was cold outside, and the camp guard was reluctant to go on beating out the reveille for long. The clanging ceased, but everything outside still looked like the middle of night when Ivan Denisovich Shukov got up to go to the bucket. Now, a lot of you guys are Hispanic, so you have 2 last names. Russians do the same thing. Ivan Denisovich Shukov. There's going to be another Shukov, but his name's not going to be Denisovich Shukov, right? So a lot of you guys have hyphenated last names. They do as well in Russian culture. So Ivan Denisovich Shukov got up to go to the bucket. It was pitch dark except for the yellow light cast on the window by 3 lamps. 2 in the outer zone, 1 inside the camp itself. And no one came to unbolt the barracks door. There was no sign of the barrack orderlies pushing a pole into place to lift the barrel of excrement and carry it out. Shukov never overslept revelry. He always got up at once. For the next 90 minutes until they assembled for work belonged to him, not to the authorities. And any old-timer could always earn a bit by sewing a pair of mittens for someone out of the sleeve lining, or bringing some rich loafer in the squad to dry his Valinki. Valinki is knee-length felt boots for winter gear. So, this whole thing, right? He's a wake up at 5 a.m., right? Now, first of all, a microcosm for his whole existence. Does this man push snooze 100 times like some of you guys do? He never oversleeps reverie because the next 90 minutes belong to him and him solely. Let's get the importance of that. Because it's only going to be one day, you have to really look at where he puts his time. Those 90 minutes belong to him, right? Think about your day. Is it those 45 minutes at lunch where you're you? Is it after the bell rings at 3:15 and you go home? Are you? It's the morning. When are your moments? Your moments. His are right after they're woken up at 5 a.m. because the next 90 are his. Right up to his bunk so that he wouldn't have to stumble barefoot round the heap of boots looking for his own pair. Or going the rounds of the warehouses offering to be of service, sweeping up this or fetching that. Or going to the mess hall to collect bowls from the tables and bring them stacked to the dishwashers. You're sure to be given something to eat there. Though there were plenty of others at that game. More than plenty. And what's worse, if you found a bowl with something left in, you could hardly resist licking it out. But Shukov had never forgotten the words of his first squad leader, Kuzyomin, a hard-bitten prisoner who had already been in for 12 years by 1943, who told the newcomers just in front, as they sat beside a fire in a desolate cutting in the forest, "Here, men, you live by the law of the taiga. But even here, people manage to live. The ones that don't make it are those who lick other men's leftovers, those who count on the doctors to pull them through, and those who squeal on their buddies." So within the microcosm of this gulag, this Russian work camp, there's 3 basic rules. 1, don't lick the leftovers of others, which basically means maintain some sort of pride. 2, don't count on anybody else to pull you through. 3, it was, and don't squeal on your buddies. Nah, if you really look at it, those 3 rules, forget about jail and go into civilization, go into life, go into your life. Those are 3 rules anybody can live by. Once again, making this one moment in time, a metaphor for his whole existence. That law of the taiga is how he's going to live through this day, but more is going to permeate his whole existence. Have pride. Don't squeal on your buddies. And don't count on anybody else to save you in dark times. So allegorically, this one moment, these 3 rules, or rules in which you could live your entire existence. So remember, pointillism, 1 dot, 1 day, 1 moment in Shukov's existence. Can it be a metaphor for everything? And can you get an accurate picture of who he is as a man? As for squealers, he was wrong there. The people who were sure to get through camp all right, only if they were saving their own skin at the expense of others' people's blood. Shukov always arose at revelry, but this day he didn't. He had felt strange even before, feverish, with pains all over his body. Okay, I'm going to stop there. You guys are going to keep going, and you're going to read to the bottom of page 12, which ends, the doctor wanted him to write when in prison what he'd been given no opportunity to write in freedom. The signal for the roll call was barely audible through the double-paned, frost-blurred windows. Shukov heaved a sigh and stood up. He still had that feverish chill, but evidently he wouldn't be able to skip work. Vedushkin reached for the thermometer and read it. Neither one thing nor the other. 99.2. So when you get to that temperature, 99.2, when they take Shukov's temperature, you're going to stop reading, and that will be done. That will be your work for this week done. Remember, as we progress through this, you're going to have to write another analysis and a reflective statement for Denisovich, which you'll need to bring back to me next year so I can continue your education, hopefully face-to-face. I love you, juniors. I miss you guys. Mr. T out. Installment 1.